Dead end. Welcome all. Welcome to the show. It's no man's land, and you're kind of looking at me. I know I'm covered in dog hair. I have a dog. And it's a Tuesday like any other, but at the same time, it's not. So here on No Man's Land, I like to say, call me crazy, but we're all mad here. And indeed, yesterday the news was strange, but today it gets stranger. It's just every morning I have my coffee, and I've been reaching out to friends and family, just talking with them. This morning, the kids stayed home from school, and just looking over the headlines, I thought there's just no way it'll all fit in an hour. I'm going to do my very best. I want to say thank you for each and every one of you joining me each day, for sharing this, for tagging a friend, and for also sending me your news headlines, your news articles, and the things that you want to cover, and chatting with me. I really appreciate it. So welcome, and let me know, where are you joining me from? Where do you live? Where do you live or work? Or, maybe you're in the middle of a drive. Maybe you're on vacation. Who knows what or where in the world you are. So be sure and let me know, because depending on where you are today, you may not be having the best time, the best day. If you're in, it's hard to say, any major city in America, Palestinian places, Israel, these kind of places, it may not be great. So wake up. What are some of the first headlines you see this morning when you I don't know how and where you are, but every morning I'm waking up and I'm thinking about Colombia. Colombia, I've still not seen in the headlines. I've still not seen it mentioned one time. Complete, tanks, police, coming down the road, pow pow, shooting, running over pedestrians. Horrific. It's like Faces of Death from the 90s. Some of the stuff coming out of, and where are you seeing it? Snapchat and TikTok. And then within 12 to 24 hours, they're taken down, they're banned, they're removed. So you kind of have to follow these hashtags to even stay up to date. And in the last 24 hours, it's been really scary. People are doing SOSs with their bodies and with fire on the rooftops, hoping that people flying over in planes on their vacation from, Florida to London will see this and that somebody will help. Really interesting. Tina, oh my gosh, Tina, posting something in the chat that is going to hit close to home for me, and kind of what else is in the news that is a big deal. So let's just keep it focused. Tina, I don't even want to go there. I'm gonna show it so that people can read it. That's enough to get me all fired up. Wichita, Kansas, welcome. Raleigh, North Carolina, welcome. Minnesota here, right? Northern Minnesota. So last night, Tina, I had to do something here in Minnesota, kind of similar to what you're dealing with. And I'll share that with you. Colombia. Getting SOSs, not getting food, not having Wi-Fi, that's a big deal. We need to see that in the headlines. We need to see that in our news. We need to reach out and ask for that to be covered. Secondly, genocides happening in all sorts of communities all over. There's been declarations of war, and America is not immune to this, guys. So this is one of those, if you are being dangled with a carrot over here, or you're thinking false flag, or you're wondering about why conspiracy theorists are losing their shit. There's a lot of news that isn't being reported that is quite influential. And so yesterday's, and I know, I don't want to say we broke it. We broke the news here, but it wasn't really news, right? When we talked about it yesterday and saying that from the dark side, and we made our Star Wars jokes. And then this morning, that was breaking news. We have discovered the hackers for the pipeline and oil, and that everyone's freaking out over oil. Don't panic, guys. If we have learned anything as Americans, do not be the Hollywood stereotype. Please don't treat this like the toilet paper scare of 2020. Calm down. Where in the hell are you driving to anyway that you care about the gas being so high? Unless you're a trucker, or you aren't being reimbursed for things that you have to use for work, or it's not Like if it's going to in some way absolutely be detriment, well, it's going to affect our food and distribution and all. It has been cheaper to fly than to drive for 2 years now. I mean, capital gains and inflation as the stock market plummets. Are we surprised? Guys, we were alive in 2008. Most of us here, hopefully, listening to the podcast. And if but not before that, we listened to our grandparents and our parents tell us the tales, read the cycles, read the big fat book, also known as the book too big to fit on your shelf, called Generations by Mr. Korn. And it just talks about sociological patterns of behavior and how you can almost predict it. And you look at different regimes, you look at different political movements, you look at the Renaissance, you can even go as far down into astrology and the age of Aquarius, and you can see and explain and predict how it goes down, how it will play out. It's very, very, very helpful, I think, to me, working in mental health, seeing people kind of struggling with the uncertainty and the changing of the times. You can predict things. Speaking of, before I get to the ever so personal thing that Tina mentioned about schools enacting certain things that, OMG, I speak it to the universe now. Do not let that come to my small town. I will freak out. But anyway, the SOSs are coming from Colombia, Mary. And I know that there's like bombings, going on right now as we fight over different terrorist activity happening in our sacred Holy Land, Jerusalem, in these spaces. But really, it's more about like what news are we hearing and not hearing in America, and then who and what are going to come to the aid of our allies, and who and what is Biden going to support? Are they going to support China or not? Ultimately, it kind of comes down to the string in the sweater that says, well, are you going to pull the tits off China or are you not? And that's really that matters. As people sit vacant, I had a chia seed cookie and I just know there's chia seeds in my teeth. I can feel them. Ugh, it's weird. Anyway, I just know as people are sitting vacant, waiting to get back to work at assembly line locations where the one small part is made from China and certain things are being held hostage and people just, it's a money game right now. There's a lot of money going on right now. There's a reason that we will jump to the aid of some countries and not others, and it will be money. It may not be so much gas policy, natural resources, oil in that respect, as much as it's going to be also, I think, collateral of land and natural resources, water and land and airspace, which we're seeing kind of being snatched up. I know yesterday we ended on the tail feathers of what was also breaking news this morning, which really wasn't breaking. It was breaking air. It was breaking like 2 days ago, I think. News. Come on, news, be better. And that is that Bill Gates and his wife. Is it Kevin Kline? Is it not Kevin Kline? Is it Kevin Kline's stunt double clone? We don't care. Anyway, that Bill and his wife are separating, and that she had started, reaching out to divorce lawyers like way back in the fall when all the Epstein stuff started really hitting the fan. And suddenly there were pictures of Bill Gates going to Special Island, getting special touch. And then all of a sudden she, as most people I think probably would do if you hear that news and maybe aren't cool or couth with it, that you go, yeah, get my divorce lawyer on the line right now. So I just saw a news headline, and I'm going to talk to Bill, but he's on his one weekend a year with his ex-girlfriend. So I can't contact him till Tuesday. But when I do, I just want to know what the hell. And that's the kind of probably conversation she had way back when. And then now we're getting the divorce as things are kind of, being launched on his website, and weird mosquito grim reapers coming through, and his mosquitoes are coming out, and like all this really weird stuff, kind of all coming full eugenic circle. And she is saying, I think you're going to be the next Nuremberg trial, and I don't want to be your wife when that goes down. It's kind of what I think. Maybe we'll see. And anyway, we see yo chia. I know, Brianna, right? The bakery up the way, Stonehouse. What? Really good kave. They have gluten-free chia cookies that are made with coconut and oat. I really like them. They remind me of my Aunt Marion's walnut and oat cookies. They like taste like nostalgia, and they're also good for you. So I'm like, yeah, give me 2 every time. And the pros and cons of life as we know it means that all day long, I look like I'm adjusting dentures or something, and I'm not. I have got nothing in there, but I think I do, but I don't. Okay. Anyway, that's my sidewalk about chia seeds. They get gelatinous and like syllabus. They just get weird. I also don't like tapioca. Fun fact. So anyway, let's get back to the real news. Breaking news that isn't news, but that is news. Guys, let me know, knock on wood, how has your internet been? How has your signal, your wireless, how have things been acting? Things been good? Things been okay? No big deal? Everything's fine? And the only reason I ask is because we are getting ready to have some major solar storms, CMEs, coronal mass ejections. If you're a horror movie buff, you might be familiar with the Carrington event. There's some really neat horror shorts that kind of go back into fun history news, whether your grandparents or parents, I don't know how old people are. I live in a different world. I'm a vampire, so who knows? That I'm not really, but maybe. And May 1921 had some major issues. In the 80s, we had some major issues. Solar flares, a real deal. But the Carrington event in September of 1859, people freaked the F out, and rightfully so, because some of what happens when you start having some of these solar flares happening and spiking, G1, G2, by the way, for us, we're thinking G2 coming on May 14th, which is coinciding. Is it really? Is it really? Yeah. It's like the Mayans knew. It's coinciding with all the astrological phenomenons of the 555 oscillator, the great spiritual ascendance, all the weird conspiracy theories of energy, and it's actually lining up to all that. Yeah. It also lines up to whenever the United States has to release all of their UFO and X-Files. Oh, it lines up with the possibility of a major grid outage and hacking of our major resources. Mm-hmm. Like back in the Carrington event when the Aurora Borealis was so big, people thought that there were UFOs and breaks in the sky and strange things in the air and sounds breaking from the forest and machines working without being plugged in and the sun not going down. Like the end of times. Yeah, people freaked out. Man, can you imagine if people couldn't get on TikTok? They'd freak out. You guys. Alien Jesus. Right here. It might be a hologram. It might be 3D. It doesn't matter to you or me. We're in the Matrix now. We always have been. How? We don't know. Anyway, this is happening this month. It's happening on the 14th or 15th. That's just a few days from now. So don't panic. It's very important that you not. It's very important, even if it is alien Jesus, according to certain Dr. Greer's and Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind experiments, that you have no fear in your heart, that you shall walk upon this blade with no fear. But that really, that just know who your neighbors are, feel calm, do what you can, ride the wave of life, and most importantly, hold the news accountable. So as Ghislaine extends her trial on continued extenuating circumstances of sexual assault, and Mrs. Gates says, yeah, I'm not doing that, as more things surface, and things are surfacing, and I'm reading stuff about Bill, and definitely that lawyer back then is getting another call from me, and yep, that's happening. And Caitlyn Jenner, right, out of the middle of nowhere, coming to California, she or Caitlin is opposition. No, it's none of my business. CBS. Do we really, like, where are we getting these news things from? So again, when I reach thousands of millions of subscribers, I don't feel as though my small little news outlet podcast would be banned and reported as it is when I say certain trigger words. Then I feel a little bit more, I don't want to say that I feel unsafe speaking, but I definitely have to be cautious. So I want to say and show you where the sources are, but if I show them, then I get taken down. That's really weird. By the way, that's like the opposite of how it was in school when it said, show your sources. Show your sources. Like Giuliani requiring show your sources. The news is just vanishing. It just comes and goes, just like a quick trip on a Friday night. It's just in and out, in and out, in and out. What's happening? It's just happening too fast. People can't even keep up. People can't care enough. And so people don't. They shut down. They stop. Mental health going up. Shootings go up. Is the world a crazy space right now? Absolutely. Not only in America, though, right? Because 4 hours ago, Russia, school shooting, leaving at least 9 people dead. Oh, so it's not just America then. Well, that's good to know. I mean, we knew we were crazy, but it's not just us. No, it's basically anywhere where people are revolting, and that's everywhere. In a lot of major cities all across the world right now. People protesting, people getting beat, people shining flashlights through their Canadian flags over at Niagara Falls, and all sorts of weird things. That's weird. But it at least helps us not feel so alone. And also kind of strange news, whether or not people want to address it or not, because sometimes I don't know if it's conspiracy, just kind of like the coronal mass ejections. And we say, could this be the end of the world? And I mean, as far as how people regulate themselves, how people process, it's going to be a change. It's going to be a shift. Most importantly, it's about control. It's about how we micromanage, how we navigate, how we set standards. All of these things are shifting and adjusting spiritually, emotionally, mentally, physically, legally. And that in some spaces means war, building a wall, not building a wall. You know, guys, I'm interested in those of you who voted for Biden or who are very against a wall. Send me a message. Let me know your thoughts on this mismanagement of a budget, or if you feel like it's bad for the mountainous region and the construction sitting vacant and dormant and just doing anything and just big open holes, like what's okay and what's not. Because again, seizing family property, eminent domain, just take it. But there's families there, Biden. What should I do? Just take it. He won't remember. He won't feel bad because he won't remember. You're right. Oh, then I don't feel so bad. Yeah, no, make him do it. Biden seizes more family property along the Mexico border so that he can continue building the wall that he said was so ridiculous, as well as continuing to fund and pass bills that support opium crisis and big pharma, despite saying they're incarcerated for being sick. These vulnerable people should not. It's like they don't care. It's like they're politicians. It's like they're professional politicians. Luckily, we still live in a place where in our schools, hopefully, we are teaching Bill of Rights. We are teaching that, gosh, I can still hopefully have this right to talk about things that we should have transparency and honesty and integrity, and not feel as though someone's going to come knocking on my door and be afraid to speak about the important things. Guys, being and holding organizations accountable. I want to step into that really quick. And I know I'm just jumping right along because yesterday time flew. And again, it's 12:22, so time's just flying. The continuation of organizations that you look at, you give your money to, and you go, you know what? I'm going to give my money to this organization, or I'm not. Or how does this organization come to be? Oh, they get privately funded. Oh, this is really interesting. Private money and what you do with your money and the elite, or the small percentage of people that do have large amounts of money to just donate, or when you know the rules, you know that, well, you donate that in December and write it off on your taxes in January. And you just kind of make your money work for you. And we have, like, Black Lives Matter, for example. There was a Star Tribune article here out of my home state, Minnesota, where they're talking about Native American Indigenous organizations giving back more than $12 million last year annually to their communities. And that just because they're giving back to people of color or certain programs, their organization is kind of transparent upfront about, we want to give back to, and you're giving to, like, the Ojibwe, the Hispanic community. You're giving to organizations that is their motto. We're going to give back to our community. Now, this isn't necessarily, again, you kind of go, well, is Black Lives Matter? Is that their motto? And it's actually not. So technically, I mean, we shouldn't be surprised that they're not giving any, just continued of none. And I'm just kind of waiting for that kickback. I'm waiting for that to return, because out of Minneapolis, we have shootings as well. Russia, you're not alone. We have shootings, Kansas City shootings, Colorado shootings, whether it's ex-boyfriends being mad, and it's a lot of angry, mismanaged emotion, people feeling unrest. It's not the gun. The gun isn't getting up, walking out, and doing it on its own, guys. It's the lack of control, the lack of management, the lack of awareness, the lack of responsibility, accountability. These certain things that it shouldn't be the government's role. It really even shouldn't be an organization's role. So to a certain point, we go, well, I mean, what do we expect? I'm not expecting, or even looking at protesters out in their signs saying, please vote this, give all your money to this. Well, what are you doing personally in that personal space? And so then that brings me to something I kind of want to mention that Tina and some other people joining had shared in their own community. What's going on in your community? Anna says, burners. I was thinking, why don't I find some natives who sell in my local area? Although I'm in a super city area. If I look, I will find. Yes, you will. And I love that. I love where your mind is at, Brianna. Absolutely. That's the way to do it. So, and then Mary says, I watched another guy. They were dealing with some seriously messed up dark web activity. Oh my gosh. The children's rings and some of the amazing human trafficking, sex trafficking, and things that, again, kind of coming forward, and like Ghislaine Maxwell, and why some of this Bill Gates divorce stuff is probably and likely happening, which is important. Pipeline discussions. We have some pipeline protests going on up here in Minnesota too that I need to talk about. It's just a lot. But let's bring it home in your community, or you're a teacher, or you are or have seen headlines about critical race theory and seed programs around America. I'm just wondering if that is something that you have had to, and I say deal with, because again, the responsibility comes down to talking about it, learning about it, gaining information. And I'd shared with my husband, this has come to my small town now. I lived in Minneapolis recently. I was a part of this Minneapolis exodus, probably right before other people started moving. I'll give that a little credence to my intuition and bad timing and luck. But I scooted out there in 2018, mid 2018, out of the city because I could see it burning. I could see it crumbling, and I felt like there wasn't a lot I could do in the fire. I needed to remove myself and see what changes I could make from afar. It was one of those, the schools were bad. The neighborhoods were a struggle. The disparity of funds, budgets, the politics, it just seemed too corrupt. It seemed too big. And it was a relief then to have the opportunity that my husband, be it from a small northern Minnesota town, this beautiful lumberjack of a man from, Pequot, and we're surrounded by trees. I can drive to Canada before I can drive to most any other state. It's beautiful landscape. It's natural reserves. It's people coming to vacation. You get a great diversity. so that you get the opportunity to decompress and still have your space to come back to. It's a really nice thing for me in many ways psychologically, but having a degree in forensic psychology, wanting to complete my doctorate in that field, hoping to work with the BCA and kind of intermingling already in some collaboration efforts with them through mental health, tri-state, tri-county situations, and then plucking myself into a small town. But I did it, and we did it because it was best for our family, because we felt like we could make a change in a smaller space and work out from there and take what we knew, what we had seen, what we had personally experienced in the city, and then bring it back to the small town to make a difference and to join in an effort and a community and a village that really love their children. They know each other. They still have a reflection of every human issue, right? Poverty in some places, drama at the coffee shop, but for the most part, you don't have shootings, mass shootings, assaults, groups of young Black kids just orphaned out in gangs, one after the other, shooting each other outside of Aqua, being shut down, one nightclub after the other, going to the corner over gang violence and tripping out over laced fentanyl every 3 or 4 hours. You just don't have that here. It's a little different. You feel a little safer. And you feel a presence. Now, here in northern Minnesota, our superintendent just so happened that a few years ago, kind of like myself, he moved from Minneapolis like me, small town, but instead of like myself and my husband, even having married and knowing family and friends in the community, you have to make efforts to transition. I felt like I was being stared at because I was. I have half a shaved head and a lip ring coming up to a mostly Lutheran community. If you Google me and someone whispers my name, they're going to see Paranormal Sarah. They're going to see that I've written books on haunted events and traveling the world and being on TV doing ghost hunting. I dance crazy in the gray, in the fringe, in the fray. Conspiracy theories, Bilderberg meetings, documentaries, you name it. Weird little spaces. And of course I got treated differently. That. I'm not going to be personally offended. These people aren't mean people. They're curious. I'm smart enough to know how people act when they see something different or new. I've been to the zoo. I've seen chicks hatch. I've watched animals in nature do the same thing. Certainty and uncertainty, predictability. But anyway, I had to transition into the small town. And I've been here for 2 years, and still sometimes I feel a little different. I don't know everybody. PTA probably still doesn't want me and the group. But a bunch of parents started rallying together because of the critical race theory moving into the town. Now, I don't particularly believe that any one policy or something taught movement, such as it were, is race. However, being someone who understands the importance of language, understands the importance of indoctrination, and also just how we talk, speak to, and teach our vulnerable, it's not a new concept. And neither is critical race theory. It's been around for decades. And only recently has it become a situation because, as anyone who plays long strategy games knows, we are now seeing the symptoms. We're seeing the bleeding, the breaking out, the crying of a long time, decades. It's been around for decades. You're right. It's taken about what KGB, the China infrastructure frameworks of spies that have been coming in and out. No, I'm not being racist. I'm just talking about national warfare. I'm talking about Risk, the game, only real. How long is the KGB, MK Ultra people like Frank Olson? How long have we been doing that? Oh, decades? Oh, okay, yeah. Just making sure. Decades. It's a long game. Patents on frequencies, TVs, medication, things that go in your water, in your food. It takes time. And it begins to blister and fester and hurt. And you see your most vulnerable begin to erupt in panic and pain. We are now in trauma, critical race. I don't see that program's name, critical race theory. And it's ironic, but it's not. The name alone. There's one race, human, by the way, and it is indeed critical. And the way in which we maneuver and navigate with each other and the way that we teach, guys, I don't want to say indoctrinated, but aren't we all taught and conditioned? Luckily, I had a broken family, so I had numerous different perspectives. For a long time, that may have felt very confusing, but hearing it from indentured servants, hearing it from the Irish, hearing it from the Black Americans, hearing it from Native Americans, hearing it from Cherokee, hearing it from all sorts of situations where people are plucked and prodded and used and abused like chess pieces, because indeed we are. That a government should fear its people and not the other way around. And so to just stay objective, stay calm, not get upset. I want to learn as much as I can. And again, critical race theory, when we see the lessons on this, when it is held in the hands of teachers and we say, well, what is it? What is it really? It's a social construct. It's a framework. It's a suggested curriculum. It's this incentivized thing. For example, in our community and in most communities, schools, teachers, you're required to take continuing education credits. You're required for licensure to continue to stay fresh and up to date. And so organizations provide rich people or people with money, people with influence and power. They create programs to say, oh, well, we have your continuing education credits over here and we're friends with this person over here. So we'll keep your license if you pay us this and you come and see us every 60 days. Doctors, teachers, police. Not always in the places you'd expect, but also in the places you'd expect. And in the long game, you start slowly teaching and adjusting. And guys, when you listen to the argument, like say, for example, Planned Parenthood, the eugenics, the Agenda 21, ID 2020, I mean, all of it, Event 201. If you go down the wormhole, you follow the gingerbread crumbs, you follow the money trail, the common sense, really, the thread. And you realize that this starts keeping a population vulnerable. Duh. Well, yeah. Can't read. What did we do when we started taking natives off their land, reservations? What do you want to do to a group of people if you don't want them to rise up against you? If you don't want to be having some tennis oath and storming of the Bastille, if you don't want to have a revolution on your hands, there's certain steps you take. And they're as clear as the commandments. They're not that hard. They're like guide stones you might find in Georgia. I mean, it's written right there. And any late night campfire conversation will tell. We can see it happening. And so you have people then in a environment, they're underpaid, they're high stress. And organizations by the elite, by the powerful, by those in control, long game, coming up with CEUs that they encourage you not to tell anybody that you come to these meetings. But we're going to fly you out. We're going to pay extra money. We are actually, these organizations grant money, giving money to districts to teach and indoctrinate and sway and influence particular ways of teaching, particular suggestions, language that we might not call family, but we call it a unit, that we might not call it a mother, we call it a birthing person, that we don't call it a doctor, we call it a robot. We don't call it facts, we call it, what are you doing? I watched The Scarlet Pimpernel with my husband last night before bed. And oh my gosh, it's fun, it's entertaining, it's cute. But it's not funny anymore when you see it and you know your history. And what are they doing to that poor little boy and how long does it take? Hopefully we get to him soon. Yeah. And they're having him repeat that, my mother's a whore and it's the will of the people and my dad's a piece of crap and that I'm trash. And they're having this little young boy kept in solitude and torture repeat this. And you go, why would someone do that? And then you take a step back and you look at some of these curriculums and some of these suggestions where they're pulling apart nuclear families. They're suggesting that you distrust your police, that you not feel safe in your environment, that you not know how to delegate to a village, that your appearance, things beyond your control, your skin color, your melanin, your DNA is broken and bad and evil, and that you should be ashamed. And I don't support that in any way, on any level, at all. And you can see it. Micro, macro, here, there, everywhere. And so whether or not that particular teacher takes that formula and intellectual framework of identity-based Marxism and strategic delivery of social and economic justice that helps motivate movement challenges and the abilities of children. Some of the kids in your district don't even know how to read. And you're going to take a vacation and give money and disperse it into places that indoctrinate over long periods of time. And you are now seeing the state of our social justice framework and how it has come to be. I don't get to see my dad as often. I moved across the country. I went and did higher education. I believed certain things were really important that I've learned and come to know really are not. School didn't teach me that family was number one. And it really shouldn't be their job to do so. And the diversity, the mixing bowl, the American dream, it requires cooperation. It requires freedom until that infringes on the liberties of another. And that you don't roll up on an old veteran at a Sonic drive-thru playing WAP as loud as you can with your phone in his face, making fun of him while he's out eating a smoothie by himself, probably reminiscing about how that used to be something he did with his recent wife that passed. And then you go online and expect to go viral. And that when you see people laughing, that you feel too uncomfortable to make conflict, that you should be able to go up and say, that's not funny. Because I do look crazy in some spaces. I'll be honest. Last night, I went to a board meeting. We are going to be having a board meeting to discuss critical race theory, and it's being taught in our schools. And the reason that this came up is because with all of the Minnesota justice for George Floyd, justice for this, Daunte Wright, we have shootings too. We have all of this news. We have all the people, all the representatives, all the famous lawyers, all the civil rights, entertainment people coming in and out on a regular basis around here in Minnesota. And we also have record numbers of sex trafficking, missing children. We also top the charts in fentanyl and overdose and opiate abuse. We also struggle with our mental health. And we, like New York, are having police leave in record numbers. And like most democratic cities across the country, over time, it's just been a continuation of disrespect for service, a lack of pay for those people in charge of our vulnerable, and corruption up and up and up. And it's not a bell chart that is surprising or shocking when you see it. Usually it happens in cities when people are stacked on top of each other and they don't give a shit. You see 1,000 people a day, and yet no one stops to say hello to you. And technology doesn't help. Screen time doesn't help. Being isolated from a pandemic with a mask on your face. Last night, I walked into the board meeting, and right down the hall was a choir concert. And it kind of made me think back to my days in high school when I was in a cappella choir. Gosh, I loved choir. Had some really great memories there. And my nieces and nephews are in choir concert, and you peek in. Not family aren't allowed to come and watch, only mom and dad. Not extended people. We can't come in and support and fill the bleachers like we used to. I can only watch it on a live stream. But I did peek in and see everybody spaced 6 feet apart with a mask on their face. And I just couldn't understand the choir concert. It didn't make a lot of sense to me. Why even have it at that point? I would have probably utilized computer and digital stuff and done like a Technotronic, video montage of everybody singing just so we could see their faces and remember these crazy times and how we were innovative. But instead, we just went along with it, and it looks ridiculous. And the kids, their energy looks horrific. No one looks happy. No one is happy. And the mass shootings, the panels weighing in on elections, Felice. I mean, there's a tiger on the streets, for gosh sakes, in Houston. I mean, what is going on? 13-year-olds shooting each other, people going in to just open, and it's not the gun's fault. We've got stabbings. I mean, we've got some of the highest rates of stabbings in 15 years. Guys. What? Get rid of the knives. Get rid of it all. And India apparently having a new strain of a variant, and really discussions of Fauci and AOC and other very prominent political figures saying things under their breath that I can't dare share here. I'll probably post the links in my comments, as I often do on these videos, so that you guys can follow the wormholes as long as they'll stay up. But in some countries, the coronavirus has been brought to a standstill, while other countries are dying in whoa. People shooting each other here, coughing up blood over there, keeling over there, women walking around scalped in the streets in California. I mean, just what? Yeah. Weird stuff. But last night, critical race theory, for the first time, from what some of the parents in the community had said, never has there been more than maybe 20 people at a board meeting. But last night there were hundreds of parents who showed up, because parents, they started a Facebook group online and said, listen, my kids are coming home. They're 5, they're 7 years old, calling each other racist, pointing at each other, screaming racist like it's a derogatory term. It's new in their language, and it's not something we're using at home. And where is this? And we're seeing it in seed programs. We're seeing it in outsourced critical race theory continuing education. And what's really weird is that for those parents who wanted to learn more about it, or what teachers have taken this, so that we can just reach out to those teachers and see what part of the framework are they teaching. I mean, some of that framework suggests that if you're a Caucasian student, that you have to, in the ice breaking stages, that part of your introduction not just be telling us about yourself, but taking time to delegate and honor your privilege and to apologize to your fellow students of color. Guys, I'm not going to have my children do that. I'm not going to have my 7-year-old stand up in his class and say, hi, I'm so-and-so, and I like Wolverine, and I'm sorry for who I am. It's not going to happen. But I also understand that that's pretty extreme. So I'd just like to ask questions. I'd like to see who's taking it, what teachers are teaching it, and so that I can talk to the teachers directly. But the teachers don't want to talk about it because they've been told not to talk about it. They've been kind of incentivized in their low pay on these bonuses. Don't talk about it. Part of it is, making sure that the frameworks, it's kind of, now that's not okay. And then the school board you call and they don't have open meetings, which breaks some laws, gets kind of funky, gets weird when you think, okay, if you go up the ladder high enough to the people who are allowing these incentive programs and accepting the grants, and you just want to ask them questions, people aren't getting emails back. They're not getting returned calls. And we're talking like more than 396 people not getting an adequate response to their questions about critical race theory being taught directly in their schools. So they were going to have this board meeting. So this board meeting happened last night. It's in the big gym and we all go there and we're sitting. And it was explained that it was going to be a discussion to address the concerns, which as of online with all the parents protesting and all of the things, that it's obviously a concern that there are a large number of parents now suddenly aware of the presenting images because our herpes hasn't had a big blister on our lip until now. But, oh, okay, we've always had, oh, okay. Oh, it's because of stress. Oh, okay. So now society's under stress. People are shooting each other. Things are amping up. Oil's going up. People are panicking. Pandemic, natural. And we're seeing bullying and teen suicide and craziness. And we just want to ask questions if some of what maybe has been taught or what's going to be taught isn't influencing us directly, and how to maybe adjust that influence, and that we'd like to talk about that and not getting the ability to talk. And then you show up in the meeting and the entire thing was a rebuttal. It was not a discussion. You were not allowed to ask questions. It was a pre-scripted summary read out loud that, well, I wrote this and all 7 board members have had a chance to look at it. And we feel that this is what we're going to say. And we are going to continue to do this because they're receiving money. And they don't really get enough friction to have to want to change that, because who doesn't like money? And we have decided unanimously that this is going to stay, and thank you. And let's not exaggerate. How many, Sarah? 100? 150? More than has ever been in that auditorium for a school board meeting? Booed. Cried. Walked out. Said, shame on you. Said, we're taking our kids out. And then you go online and you look and you see the parents, and they really are. And now I'm a parent in this situation where, regardless of where I fall on the spectrum, it's a small community of less than 2,000 people. Some families have lived here for generations. The Babinski Foundation, like national companies. Julia Roberts lives down the road, right? Like big money in this town. And these people are showing up despite the pandemic, telling you no. And you're not responding to the emails, and you didn't have an open meeting to address questions. And all you said was, we have a legal team and we're sorry. That is waking a sleeping giant. And that is right on par with everything in the realm. Now, homeschooling is a great option if you can. And not everyone has that. My children, I like them to go to public school because I think having a myriad of teachers and influences and people that want to do their job and want to teach young kids and who want to be a positive role model. I mean, there's math teachers that love math and know how to teach it much better than I ever could. And I want them to get discipline from the librarian and the janitor and the gym coach. I want them to see that it's not just mom and dad that say, you need to do this, this, and this, that it's expected of you across the board. And we entrust our staff and our fellow adults within the community to kind of share in some of those standards, that we don't perpetuate hate. We treat each other with kindness, the golden rule. I mean, at our elementary, they have people repeat, respect, kindness, respectful, responsible, and be kind. And some of the framework of the critical race theory and the SEED programs and what they teach and how it can present is the antithesis of that. And so when some parents say, just don't even teach it. Why are you even teaching that? Home ec used to be learning to sew, learning to cook, making a tiramisu, learning to clean out the sink so it doesn't mold. Having a wonderful woman that could teach you how to make bread and do alchemy of the kitchen. And now in home ec, they learn the different types of families. That's not your job. That's not, no, let's not. That's not, no. Nope. And where I struggle is that the schools don't need to be doing that. They're already stressed enough. You have a hard job, but when kept simple and secure, it's doable. It's attainable. And the children and the families and you and all of us can succeed. If you have 60-40 or 50-50 or 80-20 in a particular theory or framework, and a large chunk of those parents are saying, if you continue teaching this, I'm yanking all my kids out. If they feel that strongly that they're going to uproot their entire life and drastically change the funding for the rest of the kids in the community in a system and in a structure that's already teetering with the pandemic, you're going to crash it. And that's exactly what this critical race theory is designed to do in the long term. It's designed to crash the system and to do it with the vulnerable. And it's happening all over in a bunch of different ways. It's warfare. It is. It's psychological, biological warfare. You mean we're not just fighting with bayonets anymore? We've evolved. We have indeed. And it's here. And the desperation is real. But I also just wanted to say that I went to the board meeting. It felt a little uncomfortable. I walked in, I sat down. I wasn't sure where to sit. I knew that there were lines drawn. I didn't know people. I'm an outsider, much like the superintendent. However, I decided to put in effort, join the chamber, start a business, walk door to door, shake hands, smile, go to the family in the park, get my kids enrolled in the public school, try my best to join the things, even though I was still turned down sometimes. Tried a second and third time because I wanted to show I was persistent. I know people talk about me in the town, but you know what? I will endure. I will persist. I will have courage and be strong. And that's what you do when you are tempered. And went to the board meeting and I left in tears. Usually I'm pretty good at controlling myself, but hearing some of the things that the school board said and their inability to address a single question or concern, when their job at the very least is just to make sure that kids are safe and kind. Addressing the fact that bullying is up, addressing that some kids are illiterate, addressing all the concerns that we have, and yet bowing out to the very problem. It doesn't make any sense to me. It's almost ironic that we are here at a school where the smart people should be, and that you are condescending, thinking everyone else is dumb, and that yet you are the ones repeating, erasing, and censoring history and falling victim to it. Now, I had shared on the website afterwards because there were parents in the parking lot. They had police at the school board meeting in a small town of less than 2,000 people in northern Minnesota, like cities all across the country. And we are not alone. It's happening all over. But now here's the deal, is you go online and people are like, well, I'm just going to pull my kids out. Well, one, kids aren't pawns. They shouldn't be. And I don't want to fight the system with the same problem and fire with fire in that respect at the kids. And my husband really suggested that, and I was proud of him because that's sometimes the first thing you think of, right? But our children are strong too. And I know that we teach them well. And I don't believe that teachers are bad or racist. I don't want to generalize. I don't believe that. But I do want to know who's teaching it and why. And I want to be able to ask questions. And so I'm going to take some time to do that. And where laws are being broken, I will hold people accountable. And I understand the process takes time. Bodies lay on the cement while mothers cry. And we want the ambulance to pluck them up and bring them back to life. But instead, we have to make sure that due process is done correctly. We have to make sure that the law is equal across the land to everyone. And that requires cooperation. It requires some places that are going to feel uncomfortable. And so I knew that leaving in tears was me being uncomfortable in a space that's unhealthy. But I'm not going to move. I did that already. We moved from Minneapolis and it followed us. It's like the nothing, like the never-ending story. If you avoid it, if you neglect it, Professor Peterson says a problem neglected is a problem multiplied. And I really believe that. I see it in my mental health work. I see it in math. I see it in gardening. I see that in my laundry pile downstairs. And unfortunately, I also see that in the critical race theory and in our schools. And so get rid of it. You don't need it. It's a bad seed. It's not good. And a big chunk of people don't even like it. Do you really need the money that bad? Because enough families are going to pull their kids out if we stand up and stick together and say no. Because running, there's not going to be anywhere to run to soon. Once upon a time, people ran here to the land of the free and the home of the brave. And I just want you to take a minute as we end the show today, and I'll see you here tomorrow. Same time, same place. But do you feel free? And do you feel brave? When you think of people dying in their hospital beds or kids graduating with a mask on, going to a concert, a choir concert, standing 6 feet apart, if moving and running feels brave. Nope. Not going to do it. Not going to happen. So if change needs to be made, maybe something that's been here for decades is part of the problem. Seems pretty clear to me, even though it's uncomfortable. But we can do it together. And that's what compromise is about. That's what delegation is about. That's why in social services, we try and get a village and a community to help. Because it's not going to just be one person. It takes many. And so in that, if you can identify with anything that we've talked about today, reach out, let me know, or tag someone that you know if you're dealing with this in your schools, or if you feel a certain way, or you have something to share or advice to give, preferably respectful and kind, right? But all the information we can get, the better. So that is what I am about. And that's what No Man's Land is about. It's about putting your guns down for just a moment, regardless of what side you are on, and walking out into the middle of that vacant space. And there's a lot of collateral damage. And being willing to compromise and talk about something and figure out what it is that is really the problem. So you guys, I hope as you continue to look at the headlines and see the nastiness of some of the news and things, instead, consider yourself powerful and really in control, because you can control your reactions and what you decide to do from this point forward once you receive the information. Turn the computer off. How are you going to respond to a coronal mass ejection if we should have one here on the 14th? What does that mean? You get to go pick how you look at the news. It can be like it once was before the 2012 algorithm shifted and just fed us things. And you can take a little extra time and not rush through things as well. So with that, I hope that you will join me tonight. It is Tuesday, guys. It's Taco Tuesday, which means if you are at all into the fringe or metaphysical, every Tuesday night at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time, I do astrology and alchemy with Matthew Slozier, and we break down the next week of astrology. And you don't want to miss this coming week, because we have got the second 555 gateway portal and a bunch of different shifts happening that are going to be quite important to the major life shifts that people are going through, the beginnings and the endings of what we see happening around us. So thank you guys for joining me today. Thank you always. And I hope to see you here tomorrow. And it will be the same time, same place, noon Central Standard Time here at No Man's Land with me, your host, Sarah Soderlund. So until then, guys, have a great Tuesday.